Welcome to Unique Ways with Thomas Gerard, an audio podcast. Today's guest is coming to us from another part of Canada. He is a UX researcher at SkipTheDishes, Canada's leading food delivery app, where he studies consumer motivations and behaviors. He has a bachelor's degree in interaction design and an MRes, master's degree from Royal College of Art London. And his name is Michael Peter. Welcome, Michael.
Hello, hello. Happy to be here.
Great. You ready for 20 questions?
Very ready.
Okay, number one, tell me a little bit more about yourself. What is it that you do?
Well, geographically speaking, I'm an Indian-born Canadian citizen. I actually just took my oath of citizenship earlier this year in February. But professionally speaking, I like to think of myself as an artist turned designer turned researcher. And the reason I say that is because it was the fact that I was interested in the arts in high school that led me to want to pursue design at university and get a bachelor's degree in design. And it was because I did design at my bachelor's level of education that made me want to pursue research.
That's fantastic. Royal College of Art London is a dream school of mine. I was accepted, but ended up staying here in Canada, but I envy you. Number two, what's a key piece of knowledge that makes you different?
Well, I must say, Thomas, that this is the hardest question out of the 20 questions for me to come up with a response to. So my response is that, it's a combination of my lived experiences with my formal educational training, which is what makes all of us unique, right? But introspectively speaking, I would say that I'm a sensitive soul in a resilient body. My stoic outlook has led me to the decisions I've made and has led me to the person I am today.
Fascinating. I just finished a master's in liberal studies where I was learning about all the different kinds of identities I could have. And I'm always curious what people think they are. Number three, of all the things that you could do, why this? Why do you do what you do?
Well, it's human nature to want to rationalize everything, right? Because ambiguity scares us all. Therefore, I'm curious about the world around me, and notice a lot of details that is otherwise sometimes missed by most people, I would think. And so the medium I work through really depends on the questions I'm trying to respond, whether it be in art, design, or research. However, the common thread between all three is that there's an element of observation that you need to be skilled in. So this is why I do what I do. This is why I'm a researcher.
And as a UX researcher, I'm just curious, as a UX researcher, are you working with products and services?
Only products.
Only products. I imagine a lot of our audience is really curious about kind of what a day in the life would be like at SkipTheDishes, and that's a question that will come later as well. But yeah, kind of fascinating to hear what it's going to be like. Number four, what does your future look like?
Okay, so this is the second hardest question, and after this, I promise that I will stop rating your questions in level of difficulty. But this was the second hardest question for me to think a response for, and the simple answer is I don't know what my future looks like. Because if I could predict the future, Thomas, I would have figured out a way to become a billionaire by now and help us all reach the 17 UN global goals, right? Because I had this 5-year plan of pursuing my bachelor's and then following that my master's. which meant that I would study in Vancouver and then move to the UK to study at the Royal College. But the pandemic had other plans, right? And so goals and ambitions are important to direct your future, but no amount of planning can really dictate your future. So I really just let my motivations and actions dictate what my future is going to look like. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it does not. I just hope that future me is grateful and content with what he has instead of worry about what he does not have.
The 5-year plan is something that comes up a lot, has come up in other episodes as well. I don't like the 5-year plan, but people like to hear about it. They want to know, what is yours,
Yeah, absolutely.
right? Number 5, let's talk about location. What does the notion of place play into what you do?
Well, place has definitely impacted the why and what I do. My formative years were never really spent in one place. I lived in 4 other countries before calling Canada home. I lived in India, the UAE, Qatar, and Hong Kong before immigrating to Canada. So this experience has taught me to empathize with people from various cultures, perspectives, and beliefs. And empathy is a very important skill to have in the field of UX. Humans, we're egocentric beings. So I'm not sure I would have easily learned this skill if it wasn't for the different countries I've had to assimilate to during my upbringing.
That's super interesting. We have some overlap. I spent time in India and Hong Kong as well, but mainly for work, but also in my formative years. And I know how a place can inscribe itself on you, especially during those years. Number 6, if you had to start from scratch, what advice would you give your former younger self?
Well, I'd say good luck and buckle up for the ride. It's not going to be an easy one.
But
But more importantly, I'd say, pace yourself so that you're able to soak it all in, and don't be afraid to really experiment while you're at school. Because I mean, looking back, school is the only place where it's okay to not be skilled at what you do, right?
mm,
Um, because I was under the assumption that I needed to choose all of the right classes in order for it to align to this job that I was seeking, when really what's expected of you in receiving a bachelor's or a master's degree is that you complete a number of credits, right? You accumulate a number of credits. And I feel like I wasn't as exploratory during my time in school. I was very focused on my goals, and I didn't allow myself to explore a lot of other disciplines. Um, in my opinion, what school really teaches you is discipline, not so much knowledge, because knowledge is ever evolving, right? What you were taught in university 5 years ago may or may not be true today. So knowledge is ever evolving. And what school teaches you is discipline. So use your time in school to go and explore, go be foolish.
I was taught at a young age that doing a 4-year degree would basically tell people in the future that I could commit to something for 4 years. But you really succeeded. I mean, according to the QS rankings, you went to the top Canadian design school, the top art and design school in the world for your master's, and a very kind of ideal place to work, which is SkipTheDishes. So it must be a hard question for you to answer about, what could you do better?
Well, I was very goal oriented. I had that 5-year plan that I was talking to you about earlier.
Mm.
Um, And I didn't want to misstep, and I was trying to make all of the right decisions. And I feel like I am still at a loss, even though it might not come across that way,
Mm,
because there are so many different avenues that I could have explored.
mm,
But yeah, it's all perspective, Thomas.
mm. Yeah, definitely. Okay, number 7. What's a day in your life like?
Well, I'm going to use a word that, in my opinion, is overused in research and in the wider UX field. And that is, it depends. And what I love about being a researcher is that no 2 days are the same. I one day will be conducting a workshop with stakeholders to unpack the background about a project or the problem space. Another day be designing the research and recruiting participants for the research study. Another day be actually conducting the user interviews or other user tests, and so no 2 days are the same. Every day is very different. And the ability to use different methodologies in the field of research keeps things interesting.
Mm. What about a weekend? It's a weekend day.
Weekend day is a day or a period of time of my week that I use to rejuvenate and recuperate from the week before. And so it's usually time spent with my dog, with my partner, at a local bakery that just opened up down the street, or exploring. Well, I just moved from the West Coast to the prairies, right? And so my weekends are occupied with exploring the prairies, a place I've never been before.
That must be fun. We just set up this new space for the podcast here in Canby Village in Vancouver, and yeah, it feels pretty good to kind of move forward in that way, especially with your free time, to be able to rebuild, almost like playing with Legos.
Yeah.
Number 8, lifelong learning is a popular topic these days. How do you stay up to date?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with this statement. Learning never stops. If you think you know it all, you're at a great loss.
Mhm.
Um, and so the way I stay up to date is through the magical Internet of Things. I spend way too much time online than I'd like to admit. I just spent the last 17 years in school,
Mhm.
finishing my high school and going into my bachelor's, then going into my master's, and have only recently started my career on the ground, applying the knowledge that I've learned. But I do not intend that this to be the end of my education or my learning journey. I recently just took a course on agile methodologies to streamline the way I to streamline my ways of working. So learning never stops.
Mhm. Are you working remotely?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Okay. Okay, number 9, what tools do you use? Are you digital? Are you pen and paper? What are you?
The tool I use the most is my conscience. However, I do gravitate towards analog over digital.
Mm,
I'm definitely a pen and paper guy because I find that a lot less restricting to my process and the way I work. Sometimes when you're working with a software, there's a steeper learning curve, or there are limitations to what you can do. Whereas, a pen and paper, or a blank page of paper is an open canvas, right? You can do whatever on it. You can crumble it, you can fold it, you can tear it, you can draw on it, you can write on it, you can do whatever, right?
mm. Your conscience is your number one tool. Can you elaborate on
Well, I make sure that I lead all of my actions ethically, right?
that? Mm,
So I make sure that I'm not just a machine that is trying to pump out work for um, corporate America, and it's not necessarily Skip the Dishes, wherever else I end up working at. I don't want to end up being a machine, right? Because us humans, we're so much more than just a machine. And there's like the reason I think I fell into UX or fell in love with UX is because there's a human angle to the work that UXers do. And so my number one tool is my conscience. I always go back internally, and reflect on what I'm doing, and make sure that I am not going to set the world on fire.
Did you ever have Morton from LinkedIn Learning as an instructor?
Yeah, I think I took a class where it was led by you and Morton.
Oh, right. Yeah. I was just thinking about him in terms of ethics. I know he does a lot around ethics and design.
Yeah, yeah.
Great. Okay. Number 10, how do you deal with work-life balance?
Well, I'm very grateful to be able to work from home. As you know, the work I do can be done remotely. So where I work is where I live, and where I live is where I work. So it's really important for me to have a designated space to be able to focus on work, and switch off from work when I step out of the space, switch on to work when I'm in that space. Have the resources that I need accessible at arm's reach. So it's really having a designated space that allows me to have a work-life balance.
Mm. Yeah, work-life balance. It keeps coming up that how blurry a topic this is these days. Work from home, and everything before and after work from home have really kind of confused this idea of work-life balance. I think we're all having trouble making sense of it.
It's an emergent concept, right? Before that, we were commuting to work, staying there 9 to 5. And now your commute is like from your bedroom to your office for most people. So yeah, it's an emergent topic that has a lot of opportunity for introspection. Sorry, not introspection, but research.
I worked briefly as an assistant professor in India near Mumbai at an automotive school, and we were trying to figure out what people are supposed to do in a car if they don't have to drive it, or if they don't have to direct it. You have the key to the car. What happens when you unlock the door? How does that experience play out? I feel like we're in a bit of that situation now. Like, what is the home? What are these spaces that are kind of multi-spaces?
Fabulous thesis questions.
Halfway there, number 11. If you weren't doing what you do now, what would you be doing?
Well, I've really relish in the art of conveying and communicating information succinctly. If I wasn't a researcher, I'd do something else that would involve those skills. So if I wasn't necessarily fighting my parents' prejudice, that only lawyers and doctors are successful people, I feel like I would have pursued the sciences a little bit more. Not to say that science is not very prevalent in what I do today, but I'd pursue the sciences to the point where I would probably have become a decent theoretical physicist. Because similar to research, theoretical physics is about explaining natural phenomena, right?
I don't know. I'm not a science guy. I never was. I failed biology a few times, I think so.
Well, it's all of those words that you have to memorize, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Much.
Um, funny. What would you not like to do in terms of your career, in terms of life?
Well, in terms of career, I would not like to allow technology to serve evil, at least in my everyday work. It's important for me, and again, like tying back into the tool of conscience, I I I really want to ensure that technology continues to make our life easier, but also not let convenience become our greatest enemy as a consequence.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would hate for the work I do to bring us to a dystopian Wall-E future, right?
Mm. The multi-planetary species, I can't help but think of that. Elon Musk is saying you can go to Mars. You probably won't want to, but a lot of people will go anyway.
Yeah, isn't Lady Gaga supposed to go to space soon or something like that? Or that never happened?
Is she piloting the ship? I'm not sure. Number 13. What's your favorite word, quote, or sentence?
My favorite quote, and this has been a constant as long as I can remember, is that it's a quote by Leonardo da Vinci. Simplicity is the ultimate sophistication.
Mm,
And it is the underlying quote to everything I do, because to my understanding, these days there's so much talk and not so much action. We're in a constant pursuit of perfection and idealism, and we're all willing to talk a lot about it, but there's not a lot of action that follows through after it. So in my opinion, work done is better than perfect, right? And that's a known fact. And the way we can do this is by keeping things simple and constantly adapting and iterating the work that was done based on the context that's presented and situations that you're in.
Years ago, there was a great film, a documentary called Helvetica, and Wim Krauw was one of the speakers in that and would talk about clarity and design and in a way simplicity, I think, as well, and how it all kind of leans on that in a way. Number 14, what's your least favorite word, quote, or sentence?
Well, I mentioned this earlier in one of my responses, but it will have to be it depends.
Mm,
Because it depends says nothing.
mm,
I find it to be most of the time a cop-out response.
mm,
Like, tell me what it depends on, right? And why does it depend on so many things? Let's try to keep things simple here. A
mm,
lot of what I do is trying to reduce complexity and make information comprehensible,
mm.
right? So it depends just strikes my nerve.
I don't like that one either. It depends. It it truly doesn't say anything. If you had to pick one word to describe yourself, what would it be?
In a broad sense, it would be open,
Mm,
because my lived experiences has taught me to be respectful and open to place, people, and things, um, open to new and old perspectives, ideas, theories, and beliefs. Have an open mind, be empathetic. So if it was one word that was all encompassing, it would be open.
I like that. What keeps you up at night?
Climate change. and I and I don't mean to say this to amplify the severity of the problem here. I mean it in a literal sense, because it's quite literally hard to sleep at night when it's so blimmin' hot, and like just looking at the recent photos that emerged out of the Webb telescope, right? I feel like we were sold the wrong idea, or the wrong message was communicated about or around climate change, that we needed to save the planet. Looking at the fact that we're part of this like colossally huge universe, and that we're just a rock floating in space, the planet is going to live on. We don't need to be focusing on saving the planet. What we need to be focusing on is saving humanity.
Mm.
You know, the planet is going to continue to live on. We've been sold the wrong message here all along. And what keeps me up at night? Well, it's definitely climate change. And I think a lot of us across the globe can agree it is keeping them all up at night.
For me, it's lack of air conditioning. I've got the same problem as you in Vancouver. It's getting pretty hot.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, but is air conditioning really the solution?
I'm half joking. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's a good question. It kind of contributes to climate change, doesn't it? Final stretch here, number 17. What's a dream you're chasing?
Okay. So this was a question I had to really think about because I had to think back at my dreams and I wasn't able to remember most of them because you forget your dreams in the first 5 seconds as soon as you wake. But a dream is to live in a world where we realize that all we have is one another. You know, there's so much polarization, corruption, dispute around the world, just seen in the last 5 years alone, that a cooperative society really is starting to feel like a far-fetched dream.
Yeah. How do you, yeah, it's an odd question. Your interpretation of this question is unique. The dream as a literal, like I went to sleep and I dreamt dream. How do you, your dog likes that one. Number 18, what inspires you?
No, 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 no. Hey, no, no, no.
No?
Hello?
It's a common theme here, having dogs in
Hello?
the house. Yes?
Hello?
Hello?
Apologies for that.
That's okay. We all have dogs apparently now. What inspires you, Michael?
People, Thomas, people inspire me. You know, I always assume that people or the person that I'm listening to might know something that I don't.
Mhm.
And so it is people that inspire me
Mhm.
every day.
Mhm. One of the great things about this podcast is that I really kind of become best friends with someone for a week, before the podcast comes out. People really kind of open up and get, and hearing people in these episodes is really fascinating, whether they're prepared or not, whether they're long-winded or not. It really shows a lot about who people are. Yeah, people inspire me too.
Yeah. Whether
Number,
they expect a dog to bark in the middle of the podcast or not as well, right?
yeah, yeah, I think non-human animals inspire me too.
Yeah.
Number 19, any advice you'd like to share?
Yes. Well, who doesn't have opinions, right? And advice that they'd like to share. Mine is that I think we need to always be asking why and challenge assumptions. And I say that not for the sake of, revolting against the system per se, but actually understand what is being presented to you. Because ignorance might distract you in the moment, but and bring you bliss, but look at it, where it's brought us, right? Is this really the world we want to be part of and live in? And with a lot of inequality in the world, so ignorance is not a long-term solution. And so my advice would be for everybody to challenge assumption and to stay curious.
Mm-hmm. I use that word assumption a lot. I think it's a powerful word. So of course, number 20, everyone's favorite. How do we keep tabs on you? How do we follow you? How does our audience see what you're doing?
Well, the way you found me, Thomas, on LinkedIn. So anybody that is interested in connecting with me, just reach out on LinkedIn. Just type up Michael Peter, and you should be able to find me on there. I'm very much likely the only person with two first names, that is of Michael and Peter, and so, yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Michael. This has been super awesome. Michael Peter from SkipTheDishes, UX researcher. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. This was great fun.